Comic strips and graphic novels hold a special place in the French cultural landscape. Today we're going to be finding out why and meeting some of the stars of this most curious form of literature right here in the western French town that's known as the capital of cartoons. This event is now into its 41st year. Authors from all over the world are converging here to share their latest works. Meanwhile, more than 200,000 enthusiasts are expected to arrive over the 4 days, ready to restock their home libraries. That's just a fraction of the readership. 32 million comic books were sold in France last year. Well, let's meet one of the event's organisers now to find out more. Hello there, Stéphane Beaujean.
Hi.
Hi, sorry to interrupt your reading.
It's okay.
Now, you're one of the artistic directors here at the festival.
Yes.
Can you tell us, firstly, why Angoulême is known as France's cartoon capital?
Because it is the biggest event for comics. There is 10 exhibitions, almost 400 events, cultural events. You don't see that everywhere else.
And why are comic books seen as such an important and respected part of culture here in France?
I don't know, it seems rooted to our culture. We like comics for a very long time, and we're trying to import as much comics as we can from different countries. For us, it's like a cultural window. So we tend to see comics as a really creative activity.
The official competition is a very important part of the festival. Tell us what's in competition at Angoulême this year.
We can see a lot of variety in this selection. You will have political comics, children comics, old comics, Israeli comics, South African comics. It's very difficult to name them all.
What does it change for an author to win here at Angoulême?
It's a huge prize because it's the only prize in the world you can that say that you are an artist. Everywhere in the world, when you go to USA or Japan, they all say, "Oh, it's really different." In France, you don't see comics the way we do. So when we won a prize in Angoulême, we know that it's a different prize we have, and we are very proud of that.
This year, the festival is billing itself as being particularly international. In what way?
We think it's time now to create an international network between all the different cultural practices of comics. Because you have three main areas, USA, Europe and Japan. And there seems to be a lot of new way of doing comics in small countries, and we're trying to create the network between all of them. It seems a good period to do that.
Among the exhibitions here at the festival, one of them is dedicated to the 100th anniversary of the start of the First World War. That's, of course, such a horrific subject. How can that be conveyed in cartoon form?
It's very difficult to express, actually. Even the artist himself don't know. And actually, that's the thing we're trying to present to the audience, that if you want to represent First World War with comics, you have to think a lot about what you want to show to people, when it is too much of violence, when it is too quiet.
And what would you say to someone who thinks that cartoons and comic books are just for kids?
This time are over for now, and you better try to read new comics and see by yourself.
Well, there is, of course, plenty to read here, and graphic novel authors seem to take many different approaches to their style of work too, some even crossing over into a quasi-journalistic style, like Nicolas Wild. He's already garnered acclaim for his examination of expat life in Afghanistan. In this book, which is in competition, he looks into repression in Iran. Our reporter Alex Turnbull has been to meet him.
It all started here, along the banks of this Parisian canal. Nicolas Wild used to live in this neighbourhood where Afghan migrants are known to take shelter. It wasn't long before Wild, who speaks Dari fluently, found himself joking with a group of them, and that's where the adventure begins.
This is it, page 14. There are people sleeping there.
For this book, Wild went from artist to investigator, a new job for him, and a new set of skills to learn.
When I met somebody at a cafe, I would ask them questions and they'd usually give me very common answers. And it's really once we'd left the bar, I noticed that when you quiz people when they're walking, they'll tell you more interesting things than when they're sitting down.
For 10 years now, Wild has portrayed himself travelling the world. Despite his new approach to storytelling, he refused to sacrifice his freedom as an author.
It's not clear-cut journalism, in the sense that I took liberties with reality to have it fit with my story. I strive on storytelling. I focus on how it develops, on the characters, on the scenery.
As fiction mingles with reality, Wild's work is hard to define within the genre of graphic novels. But this hasn't stopped him and others make it onto the shortlist of the Angoulême Comic Book Festival.
Comic book artists don't carry around heavy equipment, so that helps people to open up. In fact, it's like a pocket cinema. You can investigate anything and make a movie, so it's great to make documentaries.
Even more so when the author flies to Iran to research a religion, Zoroastrism, that remains a sensitive topic in the land of the mullahs.
You can get inside any place and come up with a quick sketch. Back at home you can draw the missing images, but also what people imagine, what they dream about. Your drawings can be metaphorical, symbolic, and describe a reality which isn't necessarily the first degree of reality.
For his latest project, Nicolas Wild took his sketchbook to Nepal and worked alongside a TV crew, a photographer and a writer. With their drawings and speech balloons, comic book artists have earned the legitimacy to cover stories all over the world.
There's no denying that this is often very much a man's world, with male graphic novel authors often outnumbering women on the bestseller lists by 9 to 1. However, one of the ladies in competition this year has been proving for several years now that she is determined to draw her way into cartoon history books. Alison Bechdel had a smash hit in 2006 with Fun Home. Now, this year, she's back in competition with Are You My Mother? Our literature critic Gladys Marivat has been to meet her.
Hi, Alison Bechdel. I'm really nice to meet you.
Hi, Gladys. I'm very happy to meet you, too.
So it's not the first time you came to Angoulême. How do you feel about going back?
Oh, I'm very excited. It was actually the first comics festival I'd ever been to, 6 years ago when I went for the first time. Now I've been to a lot of big American crazy ones, but I'm happy to be coming back here. Angoulême feels very sane and manageable.
Okay, so Fun Home was about the mystery of your father and your coming of age as lesbian in your family funerals home in Pennsylvania. And now, 6 years after, you feel like writing about your mother. Could you tell us why?
I wanted to write about relationships in general, like between the self and the other. But it was turning out to be a very boring, incoherent book. And I realized that, in fact, what I needed to do was something very similar to Fun Home, was do a companion, a bookend book about my mother.
So your mother is a very dramatic character. She, yes, I think we could say so. She's a poet, she's an actress, and she's an artist like you. So she is still a real mystery to you. How mysterious is she to you?
Well, I should say that my mother died recently, like a year, in the past year, after the book came out. So she got a chance to read the book, which was very important, I think, for both of us, for our relationship. But she remains a mystery. You know, I have things I still wish I could ask her. She was a just very private person, and it was hard on her that I exposed so much of her life. It was uncomfortable for me to do that, but for some reason I felt that I had to do it. I'm not quite sure why. It might have been a mistake.
You think so?
I don't really think so, but I'm entertaining that possibility more than I did a while ago. Like, I did have a conversation with her once. Like, she said, "Why do you have to tell everyone everything? What's the point of that?" And you know, from my generation, that's what we did. You look at your pain and your trauma and you talk about it, and that's what helps you to get through it. But her generation, you don't talk about it. That's how you survive, by not talking about it. So we just had a very different perspectives, but I'm coming to see the value of hers in a way that I had not. The book about my father and the book about her, you know, expose a lot of intimate family secrets that she would rather not have exposed.
So your graphic novels are very literary, and how do you define what you want to write and what you want to draw in a book? How does it work?
That's a good question. I'm certainly a very wordy cartoonist, you know. It's a very mysterious process that I don't know quite how to explain. If you were watching me, it would look like I was writing. I'm on my computer and I'm typing, but I'm typing in a drawing program. So it's not just a Word document with lines going left to right across the page. I'm actually creating panels and placing my text and dialogue on the page in a certain relation, even though I haven't actually done any drawing yet. But I'm imagining that drawing. So it feels like my writing and drawing are happening simultaneously, but the physical drawing doesn't happen until later.
So people often think of graphic novels as being a male domain. You obviously break that stereotype. So why do you think it's still a surprise to some to find women doing well in this area of literature?
Well, you know, like most professions, it just takes a while for women to get into the pipeline and for young women to be exposed to work that interests them, you know, as opposed to superhero comics. And then those young women grow up to create their own comics. It's just a long process, and I think it's really, really coming to fruition lately. There's so many great women creators.
You know, you can really lose yourself in these cartoons after a while, but that is the end of our comic strip for now. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.